Hey guys, I'm Dazzling Kate, and welcome back to another new video that I've been declining to do for a while due to the research and my sanity. Hi, I'm Dazzling Kate. I talk about all things pop culture, webtoons, and the generalness of being a fangirl or fanboy. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Today's video is the problem with Lore Olympus's finale. A love story that ended with it didn't really end well in my personal opinion. I've read this since the beginning when it first came out. Not on Canvas, but when it was first popularized on the webtoon and became an original and everyone was like, "Oh my god, look, it's like Lore Olympus, this pink like plant girl falling in love with this cold CEO guy who's blue." This is one part. The other part will eventually be out in a couple of weeks. Maybe sooner if I actually feel like discussing all the background character problems that have yet to been bring have yet to be brought up. Maybe not, I'm not too sure. But anyways, let's get into today's video. So, anyways, the fertility goddess thing that went absolutely nowhere. You know, back when we were introduced to it in like season 1, that everyone made a big deal about, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Persephone is a fertility goddess, blah blah blah." And she's super mega powerful and whatever the fuck else. I put a few facts there. It's yeah, you guys can tell I'm not really the best person to do these presentation things. I tend to avoid them for obvious reasons, but I treated this like I would treat my homework. But since Rachel didn't put too much effort into her finale, I figured why should I put lots of effort into mine when everyone's like so accepting that oh yeah this happened and blah blah blah. So it's amazing. So yeah, in the same way, mine should be amazing too. In that same level of amazingness. Anyways, so it was, built up this entire time, and we just get the ending that just. I can't describe how annoying it was to just watch all these goddesses show up. It's all dramatic and shit, and then it's like, yeah, we're not gonna have an epic battle. Something that should have obviously happened and made a big deal and show the power of, all these different things. I mean, everyone, including the fucking characters, were building up to this big mega battle, but it did not go anywhere. Like, what the hell? What the hell? So instead, we're just literally given Gaia pulling Apollo out of like what's his face? I forgot his name, okay? Orinos? I don't know. It's their names are similar, guys. I'm not trying to be like doing this as a like mean thing. I'm just saying this as in there's so many names that are so similar sounding that for my sanity, I think I'm entitled to just not have to remember everybody's name, okay? Because they really didn't give me a reason to care. And that's another thing that this webtoon fails to do. Like, it gives nobody a reason to stay other than fan service, cutesy wootsy romance. I mean, sure, if you want to have that, be my guest, but it's just like the way that everyone props the series up as some kind of magnum opus, and that like the fertility goddess thing is very important to the story, but then at the end when it was like, absolutely necessary, it's just like eh? But yeah, as I describe it in one of the like lines, well, information lines, I just say it's just a confusing title to toss around nilly-willy. Like the lore behind it is really like there's some extent of thought put into it, but it just doesn't really mix well when you have all these different goddesses who are associated with fertility, like most of them being like part of nature in some way, shape, or form. And I get it to some degree, and even like Hera being involved, but it's just like, why wasn't Demeter a fertility goddess? If we're gonna use that same like standards there, why wasn't she? Like, it doesn't make sense. My brain is like wrecked, and I'm just like, I'm sure somebody in the comments is probably gonna tell me, "Dazzling Kate, this is why, this is why, this is why, this is why," and I'm probably gonna be like, "Yes, guys, feel free to correct me. That's okay. I'm I'm trying my best." But I think the only reason why Rachel even included it to begin with in the very beginning was to make Persephone sound more powerful than she really is. Let's be real. If fertility goddesses weren't a thing in this comic, I guarantee most of the shit that happened at the end wouldn't happen, and we probably would have been given a at least a little better ending that didn't suck with where it went. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, this is a thing that didn't go anywhere for like between episodes for a long time. And I'm not saying it should be included in every single episode, blah blah blah. What I'm saying is that there's got to be at least some kind of significant importance to add to this title of information that we're given throughout the series about fertility goddesses. I mean, we've just been given a bit of a mystery and then it's just like solved immediately. Like, okay, I guess. I guess. But yeah, I guarantee it would have not been much of a difference if Rachel removed this altogether. Like, maybe a smidge of a difference without, like, the annoyances of a fertility goddess title being involved. I just honestly think it's just there to make Persephone sound much cooler than she really is. But yeah, let's move on to the next thing. Like that's a problem for the series. And that is definitely the lack of Hades and Hera's trauma. Like there's different ways to deal with trauma. There is a lot of different ways to discuss trauma. But I noticed the difference between how it's treated for Persephone compared to characters like Hades and Hera. Persephone, it's like the most important damn thing in the room, no questions asked. But with Hades and Hera, it's just kind of like a second thought. Like, it's not even there to really be important, it's just kind of there to make the character sound cooler. Now, they definitely, like, Rachel definitely rushed through this, like, for both characters to deal with their trauma at the same time. And honestly, I feel like it kind of could have been a little better with how Hades handled it and how like Hera, it felt kind of okay-ish, I guess. But there's like still some elements of like, why was it at the same time? And I get it, Kronos is like the god of time, but still, it just doesn't make much sense to have like them both handling it at the same area of time. And it's like it's different for everybody. Like how we perceive our trauma and deal with it and move on from it. It's like a very almost never ending battle for some people. And sometimes it just kind of lingers in the background that just it won't leave you alone. It's something I feel like Rachel kind of dismissed when it came to these two characters compared to Persephone, who is automatically the most important one in the room because no questions asked, she's our main character, she's the pretty one, she's the most important woman in this room. No Hera, no Hades, just like just her, okay? But yeah, really think the way it's handled, you think it's just an added bonus to the characters. Like, oh, here, they've also been through some shit. Like, this is what I see a lot from younger writers when they first get into fan fiction writing and developing characters. Oftentimes, you'll have characters that are, basically emotionally traumatized from something, but it's just there to kind of uplift the character as if. And I know, like, I know the same thing could be said about Persephone, but the amount of trauma that comes from all these characters is just surprising, There's like it's just there to be a personality trait. It's not really there to develop or have people see the reality of people with trauma like traumatic pasts or problems that they've dealt with that they can't like deal with in a way where it's definitely something that is hard to talk about. And this is why I think with when you introduce so many characters with like similar traumas or trying to have everybody have some form of trauma and bring it up and every like discussion, it's just like how do you how do you try and make this character relatable and also have the trauma be respected and it's just there's just so much to say that I just can't find the right words to really do it other I just can't find the right words to really explain why it's just so shitty to see that these characters are basically treated like, oh, right, second thoughts, this is just like normal to have all these characters who are traumatized and dealing with these problems. And honestly, it's kind of sickening to me that some areas of their like trauma is never really brought up because it's not enough to expand upon, I guess, for in Rachel's mind is what I'm assuming. But compared to Persephone, you never really get enough moments. And there were more moments for Hera than there was for Hades in this in this zone. And I'm not saying it should all be like 50-50, but it needs to kind of be a little bit more thought out well, is where I'm trying to take this. Like everyone like I said, everyone's trauma is different. There's ways to perceive it, there's ways to move on from it. There's just like there's so many different ways to do so. It's not it's like I said, it's really hard to really talk about when it comes to these things of how to really truly show the right way to do it. And I feel like Rachel probably should have just kept it to one character, to be honest. I'm just with this many characters with a trauma behind them, it's just like you have to kind of be careful of how you re- represent it to the audience and how you represent that character and how they deal with it. It's just it's what was it? What was it? It's a double-edged sword, is what I'm trying to say. I think it just should have probably been left off with just Persephone or maybe just Hades. Like in a lot of ways, I think Hades would have probably been a better candidate to deal with his trauma. Like I appreciate seeing some of the scenes with Hera and how she deals with her like, deals with her past and such, but I feel like in a lot of ways that Rachel is mostly focused on the female side of trauma and trying to make oh, Evie's just looking at me and I'm like, "Okay." But like I said, it's very difficult when these two characters, Persephone and Hades, are supposed to be your main characters, and Hades is getting the shit end of the stick in a lot of ways. And there's just so much to say about him. I'm just like, yeah. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Hades is just Ken, but worse. I've been meaning to really get into this one. It's where do I begin? I guess I'll read it off like a grocery list and then break it down a little bit. So, like, his story is littered with some personality here and there, but really, he's just Persephone's boy toy. He doesn't really have much other than his daddy issues, and he doesn't really know how to have a proper understanding of his relationship with Persephone, other than her being treated like a sugar baby or something. I don't know. It's like it's always felt that way when I've like done my research. In some of the in some of the art I found by Rachel, there is this one panel that shows Hades like holding Persephone like she's some kind of little kid, and it's just like, oh, like what the fuck? Like, okay, I guess, but still, it doesn't really add up, and it doesn't help that you make the characters just so unbearable to really connect with. Like, I used to enjoy Hades' scenes, but when you really, really look into it, it's just he's really often not given enough time to develop his story. I mean, it's there's just so much. Anyways, he never really develops as a character who realizes, hey, maybe he should actually work on himself instead of just acting half his age just to get into Persephone's pants. Which we often see him backflip for Persephone's character several times over in, the story, and people have noticed this like unfair treatment that, Hades gives to her that they don't really receive. And that's remember when Mente, Thanatos, and I think it was another character. My mind's just everywhere at once. My mind's just off. But remember when they told Zeus what happened because they've noticed how odd Hades has been acting these past couple of weeks? Remember, this timeline is happening very close to each other. So for him to suddenly just like not focus his relationship on Menthe, or at least trying to fix that too much. Like, I know he tried, but it's just like for him to just basically go off and try and move his. Oh, sorry for the yawn, guys. But him going out of his way to try and get to Persephone just because he can and just because he thinks he's able to doesn't really roll well with me. It's just like you would think for someone his age, he would definitely be trying to focus more on his job more so than trying to find romance. In a lot of ways, and like in the myths, it's just like he's more of a focus on kind of guy. But once he saw Persephone, yeah, he was interested in her. He took her, and it's just like. But here's the thing that kind of makes it important. He didn't have Menthe. It complicates things when you introduce a character that's supposed to come after Persephone. So, really, it's just kind of nerve wracking when the character just kind of. I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a Hades kind of thing. I don't know, it just. But yeah, the ending with him being deeply so in love with Persephone is mild at best. He's just there to be eye candy, nothing else, no other motivations than true love. Like, okay, you don't want to develop as a character, you don't want to get out of the boy toy section, okay, I guess. But the next thing I want to talk about is definitely something I was so annoyed about when it was first introduced, which is his relationship with Thanatos that never gets past a conversation. Like, okay, so no family therapy, like Persephone did with her mom, even though that was like one session, or apologies of trying to show some affection, like trying to make up for lost time. And even when we did get scenes between the two, it's just like, oh, all I needed to do is get you a sandwich. Do you know how many problems there are with son and father relationships that have been very bad? Like, in a lot of ways, toxic masculinity really makes it difficult for some father figures to really care about their sons. And not to mention their own, past, like, Hades with his own father. Like, you would think for someone who's dealing with that, like, and then taking in Thanatos, it it doesn't really make much sense for him to just suddenly be all like, "Oh, okay." Like, I'll have one conversation with you maybe every few weeks or months or something, Thanatos, even though I helped raise you, I helped, you know, do all these other things that your parents couldn't really be bothered with. So that doesn't go anywhere. And that's kind of disappointing to me because he's a character outside of, Zeus, Poseidon, his own brothers that is his family, and then it's outside of Persephone, and you're telling me that this guy is just like, you know what? I don't really care about you too much. I care about my actual child. Like, I only care about like these other kids that I have and like that I made up in my head and such, more so than you. I don't know. I think it would have been interesting if Rachel really wanted to explore that kind of thing. Is okay. Trying to recollect myself to speak clearly so you guys can understand my voice. Why not just like it since the timeline difference between, the actual Greek mythology lore compared to Lore Olympus's mess of a timeline, why not just have introduced Thanatos after like later on because it's kind of weird that you have Thanatos who's also sleeping with Mente and do you know how really frick, fricked up that like I know this is Greek mythology but and there's so many worse relationships we could have seen in this series if Rachel wanted to be, you know, accurate. I'm you're telling me you're sleeping with your dad's girlfriend and your dad's girlfriend's also fine with that and it's just like you're like it would have been more interesting like here's what I would have done if I were to have introduced Thanatos like as a son-like figure for Hades. I would have introduced him during season 1 and I would kind of think gods age slower so of course he's going to still be a kid and of course, I would imagine like being, I don't know, 50 years old or something like that. Like I know that in some ways people are like, but that doesn't make sense as like Greek mythology in itself and all these other mythologies. Yeah, th- they're really weird. So if she wanted to really do something that would have been a little interesting, it would have been kind of funny just to have like Thanatos be this like kid that Hades has to take in, even though he's reluctant to do so. And it would have been more interesting for like Zeus to been the one to be like, you know what, you've always wanted to be a dad, right? Like, here's the thing, like, this is a funny thing I found out during my time researching, and it's, let me just like recall, because I'm looking at my other notes, and it's kind of funny to me. Okay, so Zeus is actually pretty yeah, afraid of Nyx. And I would have thought it would have been funny if, you know, Nyx is like, hey, I really don't want to raise my kid. You want to, like, take him for me? Like, I got some other things I gotta do. And Zeus being like, no. And she's like, are you sure? And she's just, like, so freaking terrifying to him that he's like, sure, why not? I'll take care of the little bugger. I'll go give him to Hades. And it's like, perfect. Thanks. I'm gonna go run off now. Like that would have been an interesting concept to introduce in season 1 is that Hades brings up that Zeus is terrified of Nyx and Zeus is like, I'm not terrified of her. I just don't want to cross her. She's a very important deity in our in our realm. So it is important that we respect her, and by doing so, you must raise her kid for me. Because he's not mine, and you're the only one who's closest to. Actually, you both work together anyways, so that would have been a more interesting way to introduce, the element of. Not Zeus. Hades raising a kid and not knowing how to do it. That would have been a little more interesting than having him already have an adult son. Like, again, that's just a last minute decision by Rachel that I'm sure she just wanted to do for the sake of, you know, fan service, I guess, of having some cutesy wootsy stuff of father and son with Hades and Thanatos, but she did it in a way where it's like you're not really gonna get much of anything from that. Again, if she really like since she doesn't really care about the timeline anyways, just why not have done that? Like that would have been a little bit more interesting and a little bit more of a personal problem outside of Hades just wanting to get into Persephone's pants. It would have actually made him step up a little bit and actually realize, hey, I'm actually responsible for a lot of these gods who are, working with me, and I got to do my best to be a prime good example. I don't know, but it just would have been a little more interesting had his relationship with Thanatos was something more than just giving him a sandwich and maybe have a conversation with him. Like, is it really hard to really talk about having a dad in the like in stories like this? Is it really hard to do that to kind of show something of Hades trying to be a better person to Persephone and wanting to like find something outside of Menthe in his relationship? And of course, skip the Thanatos and Menthe relationship altogether. Like honestly, I hate that. Like it's annoying. But yeah, what do you expect? He's just Hades. But okay, we're close to the end. We're close to the end, thank goodness. Which brings me to my other thing that was problematic for this finale, which it's Apollo's lack of punishment. Like you're telling me since we've read this from the very beginning and what Apollo did and what he's done throughout the series only leads to community service. He's assaulted Persephone, harassed a couple of more other characters, and even more if you pay attention. I really do not like paying too much attention to every detail, but it's just insane with what he's managed to do so far. And that's not even counting locking Eros and Psyche up, framing Hebe for his attempted, attempt to kill Zeus, and it's insane. Oh my goodness, Fred. Fred is just really social today. And I'm sorry for the background noise of him barking. He's just very social. He's just really social. But I guess that's also his way of saying, make sure you subscribe to the channel so he can get his fishy crackers. Please, if you love little puppies who enjoy having their fishy crackers, please subscribe to the channel so I don't have to hear him talk about fishy crackers. I appreciate it. Thank you. But okay, fine. You have all these crimes that Apollo's committed, but he only gets community service of rebuilding temples. Oh, but the temples are so hard to build with only one person, but especially if they don't have more powers. I should have expected to at least see Demeter in the background, ready to kick his ass. I would have expected everyone and their mom to kick his ass for not just what he did to Persephone, but what he's done to other characters. Like you're telling me community service is what this man gets. Meanwhile, Demeter is banished to Earth for a decade as a human, has a kid, deals with that, not being able to, do anything on her realm. Menthe for telling Zeus and the others about what Persephone might have been up to, was turned into a plant for a couple of years, and Luce, who just deals with getting her house trashed. Like, I know that's not like a big one, but seriously, that would have been kind of enjoyable. Like, oh yeah, Apollo, you like your house? Here, have some broken ass windows. I don't know. But this is like Greek mythology. There's so many different punishments that are, huge within the mythology stories. And you're telling me Rachel couldn't think, hey, wouldn't it be kind of fun to like come up with my own kind of bizarre punishment for Apollo? No, no. It's community service. It's community service. Community service. And meanwhile, there's so many things that just there's so many characters that have been punished. Like it's just insane. Like I remember this one story with I think his name was Ace 10, Aeson, who was who stumbled upon Artemis while she was bathing, and she turned him into a stag, and he was ripped to shreds by his dogs. And then my mind's just so many places right now thinking about all these consequences that, for small things that either happened or something somebody said. I mean, it's just insane. Like, okay, they remember that one punishment of like Apollo and Artemis going down to like Earth and like taking down all those like children that this one lady said was like like that she was a better mother than like Leto, but okay, it's totally fine that Apollo gets community service. He doesn't get his ass kicked. He doesn't get anything done with other than just that. Like, okay, I guess. And of course, like I can't forget like a part of what happened with Persephone tormenting him in some way of talking about her experience. Like that's not gonna do anything. It's just why not actually do Greek punishments? Like this is when you use that knowledge and do something very bizarre and something obviously a bunch of Greek gods are gonna do. No, no, no. He gets community service. That's it. Thank you, Lore Olympus, for making me wait a whole long time just to see that the main bad guy is just getting a slap on the wrist. Thank you. Anyways, let's proceed to the last thing that just is whatever. Persephone's happily ever after. Beginning, middle, and end, nothing has changed. Not even Persephone. Did she realize she could do better? Sacrifice anything? Not really. Dealt with problems but never improved as a character? The end bye. What do you mean I have to continue talking about it? I didn't sign up for that. Okay, fine. I'll continue. I'll continue. Gotta go for another 5 or so minutes of discussing why this. Throughout the entire story, Persephone has not changed. Nothing has changed. All it's doing is bowing down to Persephone's character and just enjoying it. Like enjoying the fact that Persephone is basically number one, everyone else sucks. Not even like the other side characters, I mean main characters get to have a chance to really have focus on themselves or have some kind of like anything done. It's just like, oh yeah, Persephone, 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 blah blah blah. Persephone wins. Persephone's great. Persephone's amazing. Blah blah blah. There's nothing really keeping us there to like really cheer her on. She always gets what she wants. She has everyone bowing their fucking heads down. She doesn't even get to keep some of the punishments she has, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre because there's so much that could have happened, so much that could have developed her character to more than just a Mary Sue. It's literally crazy how everyone thinks Persephone is one of the best developed characters they've read, and it's embarrassingly stupid. There's nothing that changes before. There's nothing that really is at stake for her other than, Rachel using the assault as some kind of shield from any criticism. And it doesn't help matters that when she does deal with problems, she still gets no punishment. Oh, and don't you dare bring that like, oh, she hasn't seen Hades in like a decade. That's such a bad punishment. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's not like character development, okay? That is not helping her situation, is it? No, it's not. You're telling me that she's changed? No, she has not changed. She's the same bratty girl from the beginning, middle, and end. Nothing has changed. Everyone just bowed down to her because she's Persephone. That's it. Nothing else. She didn't develop. She didn't learn any lessons. She just kind of winged it, I guess. And everything just fell in the way it should for her because she's Persephone. It's basically, it would have been better if Rachel had tried to make Persephone a little bit more relatable than just being a farm girl from the immortal realm, and she didn't even do that right. Like, we don't even get to know her outside of just her romance with Hades. Like, we don't really get to know her nymph friends. She doesn't even name any of her nymph family members. It's just like, yep, I'm Persephone. I have a family, robot family, to be honest, and everything goes my way. Yeah, that's basically the sum of it. Nothing else. And it's unfortunately sad to see happen when it comes to character development, any storytelling in general, and still somehow this series managed to be successful, mostly based off of the art and the fan service. And I mean, the art is not even worth going back and looking into. I mean, if you really want to see something better, read Lore Rekindled. That's better. That's more worth it than this. Like, I tried my best. I read it from beginning, middle to end. I tried it. I didn't like it, and that's the end of that discussion. Would I go back and reread it? Hell no. It was so bad to see how poorly developed these characters are, how bad the development between relationships were, and it's even horrible, like horrible in the degree of, oh, not even the bad guy gets a like decent punishment that we can all agree on. Like, come on. You're telling me we read this for so long only for Apollo to just basically be slapped on the wrist, Hades still remaining Ken but worse, having all these background characters that don't even get that much respect or, a decent ending, all these confusing plot holes in the end that I don't even want to go into because then I'm going to be sitting here for like 20 minutes straight or more talking about each and every one of them, and it's just like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. But yeah, guys, I'm just done with this series. After all this, I don't want to read another Lore Olympus story again. But I know people are going to come at me and ask me to read any future stories by Rachel. Which, okay, I might think about it. I might. Keyword is might. I don't think I can deal with another Lore Olympus situation ever again. This will probably what this will probably be one of my last videos I even discuss Lore Olympus. I'll probably turn part 2 into a stream and we can just discuss things there and be done with it there because I don't know what else to tell you guys. I'm done. Anyways, if you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps my channel grow. It brings fishy crackers to Fred's food bowl. He wants to make that very obvious, guys. Just make sure you subscribe for the fishy crackers, okay? Good. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, and if you are new here, again, subscribe to the channel, and join my membership if you haven't. It's just a thought. You don't need to. It's just a suggestion. Anyways, stay safe, stay cool, and most importantly, guys, stay hydrated. This is Dazzling Kate, signing the hell out of here.